Hi there, it's me, Stephen Thomas with Reports on Housing, and we're coming at you with another housing debrief. So, this is the last housing debrief for June of 2024, and I wanted to first dive in and talk about interest rates because interest rates absolutely rule the world for housing, and the housing market is extremely interest rate sensitive. And it's been stuck right above 7%. And this is with no points across the United States. And we look at this average over time. This is Mortgage News Daily, so no points. And if you throw in points, of course, you're going to get into the sixes. But this is very important because a lot of people across the United States are being quoted with a 7 handle on it. And we're very, very close and knocking on the door to getting underneath of the 7% threshold. And the very last Friday, that's tomorrow of June, out comes personal consumption expenditure, also known as PCE. This is another inflation index. It's very similar to CPI, just a basket of goods, what's happening with inflation in all different areas of the economy that matter to all consumers. So this particular gauge is actually the one that the Federal Reserve prefers. And they utilize this gauge in a lot of what they talk about in bringing inflation in under control. And the PCE most recently, we're pointing to it, is at 2.8%. That's the purple line. 2.8% is core. And that's what they like to do. They like to strip out the volatility of food and fuel and look at just everything else. And it's right now at 2.8%. Consensus is tomorrow is supposed to come in at 2.6%. And that if it is right at 2.6%, we'll get interest rates to come down a little bit. So perhaps we can again get just underneath of 7%. Now, if this comes in well under 2.6%, then all of a sudden we could see this really float down further underneath of 7% as far as interest rates are concerned. And because what happens in the economy is what happens with interest rates because the Federal Reserve is so data dependent. Now, next week is, of course, the 4th of July, Independence Day. We will be watching fireworks like everybody else, but it's also an important week because it's jobs week. And we will get job openings at the beginning of the week. And then the 5th of July, all that 4th of July celebration will be for the Independence Day of the United States, but hopefully it's also to celebrate Friday's job day where we'll be watching unemployment and we'll be watching the number of jobs created for the month of May. And if this, or for the month of June, if this comes in at a less than expectations, we could actually see interest rates drive down further into the sixes. So that's why it's an extremely important week, starting tomorrow with PCE and then next week with jobs. Super important. Now, as far as the housing market's concerned, we're in summer. And with a few more homes coming on the market than last year, what we are seeing is a slow buildup of inventory. And that's actually a cyclical common feature of the housing market that we haven't seen for a while, but inventory is building and demand is coming down just a little bit. And why does it come down during summertime? Because there's a lot of distractions. People go to the beach, they go to the pool, they go on vacation, so there's more distractions that are occurring on a daily, weekly basis. Spring is actually the best time of the season. So if you're a seller, be priced right when you come into the marketplace. So with inventory climbing and demand coming down ever so slightly, what we're really seeing is market time starting to grow. And that's also typical for the summer. And that is until we see the inventory peak out, which for many markets is sometime during the summer. Between July and in the United States, it could be anywhere from July in many markets to all the way in September. And then there are some snowbird markets that happen later on in the year. We won't get in the weeds talking about that. This week, we're talking about no housing crash. And that is because we adamantly feel that there's not going to be a housing crash based upon everything we're looking at, numbers, data, statistics. And we're all about driving home, not a narrative, but we want everybody to have the proper expectations of the marketplace. And I have been sent a couple articles recently and watched something on CNBC last week where they're interviewing somebody that has nothing but a negative narrative talking about housing crashes for the last several years. As a matter of fact, when interest rates were slightly below 3%, he was still telling about the imminent crash, and people lost out on purchasing a home, locking in at a low rate, and appreciation occurring after that. So been steering people the wrong way, but CNBC still had them on without any kind of credibility and no credentials. So I wanted to set the record straight that we're setting expectations and there's not going to be a housing crash, and we're going to explain why. And first of all, it mainly has to do with this inventory. And inventory across the United States, you could see there was a supply glut in 2006 is that first Himalaya, and then 2007 and 2008 were all at 4 million homes across the United States. That 4 million homes, keep that in mind, 4 million were far too many homes. And in 2005, what I'm pointing to right here was there was a buildup. And by the time we got to fall of 2005, there was such a buildup that there was close to 3 million homes. And we already saw the beginning of what was setting up to be the Great Recession as early as the fall of 2005. And that's what this definitely illustrates. And that is exactly what we saw at Reports on Housing, because we started it in 2004. And what I'm pointing to over here is what we call supply scarcity. And I'm going to zoom this in so you can look closely, and you're going to see that, yes, we have more inventory, and it's been rising this year compared to last year's tiny little Himalaya. And we can even compare it to, you can see across here, it's not even quite 1,300,000 homes across the United States, and it's about to hit its peak. And what I'm going to show you here is January 2022, where, yes, it's been lower, but that was such an abysmal low level. It was so anemic. There were no homes on the market. There were cities with only like a few homes on the market at the beginning of 2022. So that in any comparison is anything above that is great. We like to see this extra inventory because it's building up a little bit of extra cushion for when rates come down, demand picks up, there will be more homes for buyers to purchase when that happens. Now we're going to pit this low inventory. Remember, we have low supply of homes, supply scarcity, and it's a low level versus very, very low demand. And this low demand, you can actually see, has been kind of an issue. The low demand is fueled by how high interest rates are and how unaffordable things got. And you can actually see the national payment to income ratio. And this is just taking how much the national average median income is, or national median income across the United States. Let's call it the average family, and how much their income is on a monthly basis, how much would be utilized if they bought a home today to take care of their mortgage payment on a monthly basis. And right now it's at 35.9% across the United States. It even beats the Great Recession at 33.9%. As a matter of fact, it's so high, the last time we were here was back in the mid 1980s. So things are unaffordable. So as a result, not as many consumers across the United States, not as many United States citizens can afford to purchase a home. So it's kind of sidelined them until either values crash or if interest rates fall. And when interest rates do fall, this metric will get a lot better, and it'll open up a door to a lot more buyers that will be able to now enter the marketplace. And this is just what we're going to talk about is simple supply and demand. We're going to put this in the simplest form so that you understand this. And that is where we are at in supply and demand. And during the Great Recession, we had a load of supply. Remember, 4 million homes. In 2005, got all the way up to 3 million homes. Right now, we can't even make our way up to 1.3 million homes, and we're about to peak out. So we have way too much supply during the Great Recession and very, very small demand. And we saw that because the payment to income ratio across the United States was so high. So demand was really, really low. Not as many people could afford things when we went into the Great Recession. Now, where are we at the start of this year? We started off with a very abysmal, tiny little amount of supply. We started off last year with a very little supply in 2023. In 2022, it was even tinier amount of supply. And that's kind of what's happened every year. We start off the year with very, very little supply because the second half of the year is home to the fewest number of homes coming on the market, and they slowly get bought. And especially this year, if we have lower interest rates second half of the year, we can see our supply dwindle again. But very, very very little supply and that very, very low demand that is very, very similar to Great Recession levels in most markets across the United States. We're not doing a lot of units, not doing a lot of volume because of where interest rates are at today and the combination of prices as well. Some people will say, we've had a lot higher interest rates back in the day. I had 10%. I heard that a couple weeks ago. It doesn't matter. You plug in how high values are today, and it's just at a different unaffordable level. So really, we can't sustain ourselves at above 7%, and that's why the market kind of slows when we're above 7%. When it gets below 7%, we see the market speed up. Everybody out there wants something that starts in the sixes. As a matter of fact, everybody really wants something that starts in the fives, but it will open up the door to more buyer activity once interest rates fall below 7%. Now, this was the start of 2024, and where are we today? Well, supply has been increasing. So yes, supply is getting a little bit bigger, and it's kind of very, very similar to how low demand is. And that's why there's more of a balance in the marketplace. We're not going to see a big rise in values right now because we have more supply. Earlier in the year, we had a tiny little amount of supply and this low demand, but it was even a tinier amount of supply, so we actually had values rise. But now we're getting more supply, so there's a little bit more pushback. Homes are staying on the market a little bit longer. This is where things are a little bit different right now than, let's say, they were last year at this time. But last year, we had interest rates that kept on driving up higher and higher until we got to 8% in October of 2022. That created more of an issue because it made demand diminish even more. So that's why we look at the supply and demand within the marketplace to understand it better. Now, as far as the overall housing market, the housing stock across the United States, it is built on the backs of strong credit. There, across the United States, since the Great Recession, people have been placed into homes that have really strong credit, that have great jobs, that have low fixed payments, which are an excellent hedge against rising rents and inflation. So they get to keep that low interest rate, and that's what they've or refinanced during the pandemic years. So many people have these low interest rates out there. We have record tappable equity. That means across the United States, you could tap your equity and still have 20% equity in your homes. That's called tappable equity. So you're not depleting your house. You can actually tap into your equity and still have a lot of equity left. That's at record amounts, as well as record equity rich. Those are the people that own their home with at least 50% plus equity in their homes. So there are a record number of those across the United States, and there's a record number of people that own their homes free and clear, and it's moving its way towards 42% across the United States. So the national delinquency rate, as a result of what I said, how strong the housing stock is. This is not like prior to the Great Recession, where there were actually people's social security numbers that were linked to dead people that purchased homes. There was a dog that purchased a home. There were people that were doing no down payments, no look loans. They couldn't afford it on all these adjustable teaser rates that their rates would be really low, and then all of a sudden they balloon higher and they couldn't afford their monthly payment. But what I'm showing you here is the national delinquency rate. That's that aqua blue color, and the black one is the average from 2000 to 2005 prior to the Great Recession. And you can actually see here it's at 3.09%, which is at decades lows. It dials all the way back to 2003 when they even put this thing together, and goes back further. It is really a very, very low number of delinquencies, and you can actually see delinquencies start to rise like crazy prior to the Great Recession, but not here. We're not seeing anything like that, and that's because the overall housing stock is in a very, very healthy situation right now. Matter of fact, it is the healthiest housing stock in all United States history. So that is easy to say. Now, adjustable rate mortgages, we used to do a ton of adjustable rate mortgages, and I still hear look at how many adjustable rate mortgages we're doing on the right hand side. There's still 7% adjustable rate mortgages. We did a lot more. It was like 35% of all applications were actually adjustable rate mortgages, and back then they were not. What the adjustable rate mortgages that people are locking themselves into, it's like it can be as many as 10% is what we've seen recently, and that is they are fixed for 5 years or fixed for 7 years, and then they adjust. The adjustable rate mortgages back in the day, when you look at this from the 90s and the 2000s, we had adjustable rate mortgages that would adjust on a monthly basis. Those were the kind of adjustable rates. And what they did is they adjusted based upon these indexes that were on Wall Street. So you looked at these indexes, and if all of a sudden the index went up on Wall Street, guess what happened to your mortgage rate? It went up, and it could keep on going up like crazy. So that adjusts on a monthly basis. The kind of adjustables now are fixed for several years, and you might move and you've always had the same fixed payment. It never adjusted. So big difference between adjustable rate mortgages back then versus what we have right now. And then I want to point out where home prices are at. And if you look at across the United States, you can see 2023, there were a couple of negative months towards the end of the year when we gravitated all the way towards 8% interest rates. But 2024 through April, haven't done May. This is Freddie Mac's house price index. This comes out at the very, very end of the month. And we're right there at the end of the month. So I imagine either comes out on Friday, I can't remember, or it comes out on Monday. I cannot recall, but it was last month, the month of April, it was up 7% year over year. This is the United States. It's up 1.4% month over month. That's how much values went up from March to April and of this year. And it's actually up 0.6, or it's actually up 6% from the 2022 peak. And the 2022 peak for the United States was June of 2022. And then we remember that was interest rates went from 3.25% all the way up to 7.37% by the time we got to October of 2022. And when they went up that much, we actually saw we saw values come down because of how quickly interest rates were ballooning higher. But now we've had a stabilization in interest rates, and we can actually see at that 7% threshold. If we remain above 7%, even though we had it during the springtime, we actually had values that were still going up, but they're starting to ease a little bit because we're getting an accumulation of homes on the market with these higher interest rates at 7% or higher. But as soon as these interest rates come down a little bit, we imagine that the appreciation will kind of resume. And people are wondering, can values go down? I think I could just kind of answer that. If we have interest rates that are stuck above 7%, well, then absolutely, because we're getting more inventory. But it's not going to be one of those things where property prices really, they could go down a little bit on a monthly basis. But remember, there's not that many people, homeowners out there that are in a pickle, that absolutely have to sell. And those are the people that were lined up during the Great Recession that couldn't afford their monthly payment. They were underwater on their homes. There was a lot of underwater mortgages where their mortgage amount was higher than what their home value was. We don't have nothing like that, not even a whisper of anything like that. So property values could come down a little bit just depending upon where interest rates are until they get far enough underneath the 7% threshold. They are absolutely not going to crash. There's no recipe for that. You need a lot more inventory for that to happen, and you need to see some more instability in the marketplace and a lot more people that get in pickles. That's not what I described with the health of the housing stock across the United States. If you wouldn't want to subscribe to one of our many housing reports, we have them that dot all over the place, from Phoenix to Vegas to the Bay Area and all of Southern California. We have housing reports, so go to reportsonhousing.com to subscribe. The most recent one that came out along the coast here is open houses are back because we have more inventory. This is actually San Diego's report, what it kind of looks like. And the rest of our markets, Phoenix and Vegas, as well as the Bay Area, will get their reports next week. And if you would like to sign up and get a free month, utilize the coupon code Firecracker. Really appreciate it. I appreciate you tuning in. Everybody, I will not be doing a housing debrief for the 4th of July holiday, but I hope you enjoy your 4th of July celebration, and we will see you the following week. That would be July 11th, and have a wonderful holiday week, and we will see what happened with interest rates, and we'll be reporting on it in the second week of July. Enjoy the holiday celebration.